The first thought is that, people don't talk about this often, as far as I know, but like acting should be talked about more amongst K-pop stans for K-pop groups, because people don't realize how important acting is in K-pop for the music videos where you have to act and not make the MV look awkward depending on the concept, and plus, if you can't fit the concept, you're just gonna make the MV look weird because you're forcing yourself to do that concept because you don't fit it. It's not only about talent for me for a K-pop group, and acting is something I see now as equally important, because you can't just look pretty or dance your way through an MV if your facial expressions are dorky or dopey or odd, and not in a way that ends up making the MV cute, or if you're meant to act dorky, dopey or odd because of a certain concept like the quirky concept. Also, what if you're camera shy and so you trying to act normal in the MV would be so forced? Acting is important for me for idols who make MVs and looking natural in the MV without it looking like the idol doesn't wanna be there or the idol is trying too hard. MV editing, different scenes, scene cuts can save you from all this, but how much of this can be done to help your acting not look bad? IDK why this isn't talked about more, because y'all talk about stage presence and facial expressions, but why not this too? MVs can look bad due to low budgets, cheap edits, bad shots, no creative direction, just looking expensive but doing nothing, but it can also look bad if the idols ruin it by not knowing how to act decent enough to make the MV come out as something usable and the idols having to retake scenes multiple times, or maybe the idol's scene is used because there's no choice left but to use it. MVs can definitely look bad and have a downfall if it's the idol who cannot pull off acting just enough to make the MV not look cringy or bad. The next thought is that, I hate when people talk about lesser-known groups and be like, if they were under a bigger company, or, if they were under the Big Four, or say something like that to talk about the groups getting more popularity if they were under the Big Three plus Hybe or a bigger label. And what annoys me about these people saying this is that, the groups they mention end up being groups who are already from companies who can provide good MVs even better than the bottom of the barrel Nugas, and these companies can definitely promote them better and do things that smaller budgeted Nugas cannot do. The companies they debuted under are already quite good, so I don't understand why people think this way, that the company the group debuted under cannot do the work for the groups, because K-pop stans saying, if X group was under X company, then surely K-pop stans think the original company of the group isn't good enough to put in the effort when these companies surely can. K-pop stans underestimate these companies just because they think these companies are smaller labels, and yes, these companies might be smaller labels in company size, but in terms of budgeting, looking at the music quality, the MVs and the amount of times the groups promote on music shows etc., these companies have good budgets and would most probably fall more under being mid-tier labels. Stop trying to say, if X group were under X company, and try to look at what the original company these groups are under can do instead of picturing them under a much bigger, more large, size-wise, budget-wise, whatever-wise, label. The next thought is that, I've heard people say that K-pop groups should debut with at least one English-speaking member because of K-pop in the West, and Western interviews and things, but no. I don't think K-pop groups should be the ones to have members who speak English, even if it's decent enough to hold a conversation. If they're invited to a Western talk show and such, shouldn't the Western interviewer learn Korean, even if it's just basic decent enough Korean, for the K-pop group and not the other way around? Because like the guests are the K-pop group and not the Western host, so the Western host should try to accommodate the K-pop group. I know that the Western host gets a translator, which is great, but the Western host should put in some effort to learn some Korean, and it shouldn't be on the K-pop group always to have a member or two to know some English, as K-pop stans say. Because imagine if there's a Western celebrity invited to a Korean show or any such thing. Like for example when Tyla came on Lee Youngji's show thing, Lee Youngji knows English making it easier for communication, or when America Ferrera and Margot Robbie did that video with Vogue Korea with Somi interviewing them, and Somi knowing English, or even when Margot Robbie, America Ferrera and Greta Gerwig were interviewed for a video uploaded to the channel MMTG, the host JJ who interviewed them spoke in English. So it shows that if a Westerner is invited or does promo or something in Korea, they'll most likely do an interview and get someone who speaks English or someone who tries to speak English. Western shows should try to speak Korean, and it shouldn't always be a K-pop group member to know English, because it's like the K-pop group is trying to make the Western host comfortable as if the Western host is the guest when they're not. People shouldn't expect K-pop groups to have a member to know English, but rather should also expect the Western host to learn Korean too, because at the end of the day the Western host interviews a K-pop group and the host should make somewhat of an effort in Korean rather than just speaking English throughout, because the show may be in English, but not all the guests on the show are gonna know it. They're guests for a reason, and if they're invited to the show then you as a host should know better, and I'm not saying the host should know Korean fluently, I'm just saying it's dumb for K-pop stans to wanna expect idols to know English even decent enough, but not expect the host to know Korean even decent enough to show that the host is trying. The next thought is that, I've noticed when people talk about how, you can't possibly like every song your faves release, it always feels like it's directed to K-pop stans who seem to be forcing themselves to like every song of their faves, because it's their faves and these stans wanna support their faves like it's a job, and this is odd considering there are normal people, no matter what music they listen to, who like every song of their favorite artist. Like for example, I have ults in Korean music, Soya, Seori, Saesa Neon, some of my ults, where whatever song I've checked out from them so far, or whatever they've released not releasing new music in a while, I've liked them all, and it's because I am easily wowed away by music because I listen and like any genre of music if the song interests me. So it's odd that I don't really see people who can see K-pop stans actually liking all the music of their faves because they can, and not because of any reasons like, forcing themselves. I do agree with y'all who think that K-pop stans are forcing themselves to like every song of their faves because they cannot hate their faves because some fans are a little too over the top and crazy, but why can't y'all ever see someone who genuinely just has love for music? Because this topic being discussed is always about, you don't have to like every songs your faves release, or something along the lines of, you can't possibly like every song your faves release. There's never a, maybe the artist releases music they enjoy and so the artist has never been bad to them, and so they like every song of X artist. Like I've seen this with non-K-pop music listeners as well with bad music, because if you like a song seen as bad or terrible by a lot of people but you like it, you're tripping or something, and there must be a reason you like it. There's always gotta be a reason for everyone who falls under these categories that y'all box everyone into without distinguishing anyone, and it annoys me so much. Because y'all say these things, and say it putting everyone who seems to like every song of their faves into these topics of discussion because to you guys everyone is the same and therefore they should be put in the category as one group instead of Group A and Group B. Because genuine music lovers under these categories cannot exist in your eyes, it's always, there's no way, because you cannot see it any other way besides the way you say it, because you probably don't want to see it any other way than the way you believe it to be. People don't all act the same in the world, and there's about 8.2 billion people right now in the world, and not every one of them are the same, because if so then we'd all be robots designed to act the same way, live the same lives, etc. Everyone is human and has their own tastes, not everyone is out here supporting their faves like their lives depend on it, so they force themselves to like a song of their faves even if it's hot garbage. I like bad music as a music listener myself, does that mean I force myself to like it? No, it just means that I find the song enjoyable because I see the good parts of it or see that it's catchy or something about it that makes me like it. Fans like that can exist too. People who like music for music can exist too, and you guys should start noticing them too without labeling everyone as the same. The next thought is that, I don't like people who refer to bigger budgeted groups, not from Big 3, Hybe or other big labels, as being from a small company, because they maybe be smaller in size, but I don't think they're small companies at all. Let me explain, to me a small company is one with literally no budget making bad quality music and bad quality MVs, or maybe they have enough of a budget to make a decent quality MV one time and then the next they're making lower quality MVs. Or maybe they're making consistently good music and lower budget MVs, or maybe the company can produce good MVs alongside good music quality each time, but overall all these companies that no matter what quality don't fully have the means to push their groups further through promotions, and so these groups don't grow much even if it's a little bit, and even if it's not gonna get them to become more popular, they would still grow, but these companies cannot do much. That to me is a small company. But for other groups like for example 9i, Ichilin, Stacy etc. Where these groups are from non-major known companies, being popular or unpopular, I don't think their labels are small, I don't mean in size or staff, but in other aspects related to the budget and such. People call groups like these who have good budgets each time, can make comebacks easily, can make albums, can make good music quality and good MV quality, can promote fully and do all these things as being from small companies, but they're most probably mid-tier company groups. I don't like K-pop stans completely forgetting about the middle point in K-pop. In their eyes, in terms of companies, it's big or small companies. In terms of groups, it's popular or nugu groups. People forget the middle section and they should remember that they exist too, because it's wrong to forget about them. It's like if you were asking someone to give an opinion on something whether they agree or disagree, but you're forgetting the middle section, which is being neutral, or saying IDK, because they might be unsure if they agree or disagree or maybe just don't wanna pick sides. Like, the middle section is very evident in K-pop, but I see it forgotten a lot because people label certain groups as nugus when the groups are not, because they've made enough sales to come out of nugudom but are still far from popularity, making them fall under the category of unpopular groups, or people label certain companies as small companies. Which may be true in terms of size and staff and such, but other than that they're not small companies in terms of budgeting and probably fall under being mid-tier companies, who have really good budgets but are not bigger companies like the big three, Hybe, Cube, Starship, etc. Why do K-pop stans label groups, companies and such however they feel like naming when they shouldn't be just throwing around words? Because if you're calling a group nugu when they're probably more closer to popularity than going back to nugudom, wouldn't that be an insult to the group? Like, yes, they're not popular yet, but calling them nugus is an insult considering the hard work they've put into getting where they are, even with the company who are maybe trying to. It's just sad. Same with labeling a company as small, because every company in K-pop, not a big company, cannot possibly be small if they can do the same thing as a big company, even if it's not fully at the big company's level, but they can still do it. Companies, no matter what the industry, are not just big and small, because you don't just go from small to big, you grow and there's a middle point too, like 1, 2, 3. You don't go from 1 to 3 skipping the 2 entirely, which I mean can happen for some, but not for all. You guys shouldn't just forget the middle part like it doesn't exist. There's clear labels, but you choose only the same labels, grouping everyone together when not everyone is the same and should be in the same group because they're not on the same levels as each other. Who have sold over 600,000 plus Korean album sales in total since their debut are not nugu, one K-tuber called them as such, and are not on the same level as actual nugus like Dignity, despite only having 2 albums so far, being their debut and comeback, selling only about 4,000 plus album sales in total. How are both of these groups nugu when Way have higher sales and more chances of being close to popularity than Dignity, or of being close to getting out of nugudom? Also, a company like Wannabe Entertainment having groups like Kid and Girls, Disbanded, BRs and VVS, both promoting their smaller budget cannot be compared to a company like E Entertainment having Elast, whose budget is much better and much more higher. Both of these companies are far away in terms of budgeting from each other and cannot be put in the same group of people. That's why I don't like it, and K-pop stans need to be more specific remembering the middle section, because you can't just call someone something and keep calling them that when they're not. The next thought is that, when some K-pop channels say, K-pop is not about the music anymore, how do they know what makes K-pop about the music? Because if you say it, not sure if you do, this is just an example, in terms of, K-pop is not about the music anymore as songs are getting shorter, or something like that, then how would you know it's because of the short songs? Because short songs can also make K-pop about the music if it's done well, and I have listened to short songs in K-pop that despite being short are fulfilling at the length they are, and they don't need to be longer. I've also said a lot that K-pop is a mixing pot of different genres, and so if you say it in terms of the music itself, how would you know what makes K-pop about the music when not every group is releasing the same sound across all the groups in their music? What is a K-pop stan makes you think K-pop is not about the music anymore, since if you actually have reasons, then those reasons, which could be valid, can be argued like the 2 examples I gave above. When y'all say K-pop isn't about the music anymore, I wonder if y'all actually mean it, or if the examples y'all give are not actually examples that prove K-pop isn't about the music anymore and you just don't know if it's true. I do get that certain aspects can make you see K-pop not being about the music anymore, but are those aspects even valid, or do you just interpret it that way, which makes you see it as such, and it could not really be as such but just your analyzing of it leading you to say this phrase? Like analyzing something and having an opinion on it. A phrase like this can be true, but what if the different people saying it have different opinions on why they think so? And some of those things might not even be making K-pop not about the music anymore, which would lead to generalizations. I want people to not just say, K-pop is not about the music anymore, because I mostly see it on shorts where the channels don't explain their opinions, and so I want the channels who say this to explain their opinions too, so I know why they think so I can understand their viewpoint and see if it's valid or if it's just a stretch. The next thought is that, people say in opinions videos, for example, about X group needing a concept switch, because maybe their current one is bad, but if the group did a concept switch and that concept switch might be liked by you, maybe, but it'll be hated by someone else who won't vibe with it, that should be fine. Not every sound of a group is gonna be your taste, and everyone has different tastes too, so saying a group should switch concepts is valid if the members don't fit it and if the sound is done badly, but even if the sound is done badly, we can never know since we're not really knowledgeable on music enough to know if the concept is badly done or not. Besides the fact that members don't suit the concept or sound and it will not fit everyone, saying a group needs to change their sound may not work if it's because you think that concept they're doing is bad, when yes, that's your personal opinion, because it is an opinions video, but then again it's not bad and it just might not be your taste and someone else loves it. It's like me, where I prefer more bright and fun songs over edgy songs for boy groups, but other K-pop stans are the opposite and prefer edgy sounds more. Some of the times it's just personal preference of not liking the sound, and you're not gonna love everything a group releases in the concepts they do, and that's why tastes exists, because some concepts are made for some people, some concepts are made for other people. K-pop is a diverse genre of music for everyone, and you don't have groups just all doing one concept making K-pop some boring lifeless genre that doesn't explore anything, because if that were the case, we wouldn't have all these concepts existing since the first generation, which are cute, sexy, retro, girl crush and others etc., and everyone would be stuck doing the same thing, leading K-pop to become flavorless. The next thought is that, when people say, 4th gen lack vocals, how do they see vocals and say 4th gen lack? Because I've said before that you don't know every single 4th gen artist to know if 4th gen lack vocals, that 4th gen don't lack vocals and are more vocally good on an individual basis, meaning that there are rare groups with all members being talented and more solo idols who are talent as individuals, and I've also said a whole generation cannot lack vocals. So, I wonder, how do people see 4th gen lacking vocals? Do they only say it in terms of K-pop groups as a whole, meaning looking at all members, or do they see individual idols who don't sound that good vocally and make generalizations? Also, do K-pop stans take soloists into account or forget them entirely, because not every idol is a group member, and some idols who debut don't always debut in a group and debut solo, and soloists exist too. Also, there are K-pop bands that exist as well, and groups that exist that are not dance pop but still release K-pop like pop music. Do K-pop stans see them too? What do K-pop stans see, is what I wanna know, because there are quite a few individual singers who've debuted in the 4th gen that are good vocally, and some rare groups where all the members sing nicely. Just like a beautiful story, no tears, just love me, 'cause you're the one who's perfect to me. Don't worry, it's alright. Yeah, 반복된 회전목마 이제 내릴래. 때로는 무거운 짐을 내려놓고 잠시 네 마음 가는 대로 멀리 떠나도 돼. I'm ready to choose. 넘어질수록 더 크게 다가와, but I'm not gonna hide again. Oh, oh, it's love. 세상 무엇보다 더 강하게 해. And to say, 4th gen lack vocals, is making a huge generalization, because you saying that could just be that you're bitter and hate 4th gen or just haven't looked hard enough. And probably assume these things because good vocals in previous generations were more evident and noticeable, and in the 4th generation, the good vocals never really stood out, leading y'all to assume that 4th generation lack, when it's just that you never look because previous generation vocals were more out in the open maybe. IDK, but it's never good to generalize anything without knowing if it's true. Because there are 12 months in a year, and within those 12 months so many groups, girl, boy, and maybe even co-ed, bands, male, female, and maybe even co-ed, and even soloists debut, make comebacks, and a lot of artists exist in the Korean music industry debuting in each gen, so to say, fourth gen lack vocals, when you probably aren't looking for good ones is not it, and there are talented idols vocally who deserve appreciation. IDK, where you're seeing the bad vocals come from, because not every company is debuting a bad vocalist, and there's always gonna be 1 to 2 members in a group, or rare being the whole group having good vocals, even with bands and soloists, and you can find them if you look instead of just assuming things but never checking anything. The next thought is that, if people are saying something about listening to nugu, underrated, unpopular groups because we're trying to be cool or quirky or some nonsense, then I'm allowed to tell these people they're listening to mainstream and popular groups, or just the big popular groups, because they're boring and hate exploring outside the top groups. My genuine love for nugu and unpopular groups and artists in K-pop is because I found a video that made me fall down a nugu rabbit hole of discovering and finding more nugu artists, and it doesn't mean that I'm trying to be cool or quirky. But if you think so that people like me are just doing that to be different or not like other girls, then maybe I can think the same about you, that you might only just be listening to popular artists in K-pop because you're boring and your taste is the today's top hits K-pop edition or whatever is popular on the charts. I should be allowed to think that you listening to popular artists only, if you only do that, but also at the same time you say these things about people listening to less popular and nugu groups, is because of some reason and not because of your music tastes. I can generalize if I want to. If you're generalizing about people like me, people should be allowed to listen to what they want to, and nobody should be put in a box just because of them listening to certain artists over others. I've talked about liking what you like and listening to whoever you want, and that only becoming a problem if you end up saying things about K-pop that you don't know if it's true or not, because you're only looking at mainstream and popular artists to base your argument on, but besides that, listen to whoever you like. People shouldn't be seen as such just because they're a certain type of fan, tying in also to my take above about liking every song by your faves, since genuine music listeners who don't care about anything exist, and again, just like the liking every song of your faves take, people listening to nugus or unpopular groups are not all doing it to be cool or quirky. I'll admit that some of these fans do exist trying to be different than other K-pop stans, but not every stan is like this, and people should come to understand and not forget about people who just love music for music no matter who it comes from. The people not caring about anything to do with the song. Unless the artist is problematic, that they might care, and they're just here to enjoy what they enjoy and want it to be that way without being grouped in a box automatically just because they fall under that box of people that you've made and group everyone into without distinguishing anyone to know if they genuinely care or are exactly like how you see them, because to you it's just, you fit the box, you go in the box, and it's so annoying. The last thought is that, I know this might be dumb to talk about because the idol or group might be okay with it, but I was looking up one verse to see if their song Shattered was their debut song or was it a pre-debut, and I kept getting articles talking about the 2 members being from North Korea. And while I saw that is cool at first, even way before one verse was even officially a thing because they were called SB boys back then, now looking at it, I find it odd considering people are talking about the group, which is nice to hear that the group is already getting recognition, making it easier for K-pop stans to notice them and make them popular, but the talks mostly center around the fact that there are 2 North Korean members. Like I googled, one verse K-pop, and I got links to 5 articles that all had headlines talking about the group in terms of the 2 members being North Korean defectors, and while again that's cool and all, it's not great for the group if that's all they're being seen as currently and probably will be seen as in the future too, as the group with North Korean members. I just don't want one verse to only be known because of those 2 members, because what if their music and talent and other such things that possibly exist get forgotten simply because this is what people stumble upon when seeing the group? If people discover this group and want to get into them, this is what they'll definitely find when researching the group, considering how many articles about this group exist talking about this very topic. They should be seen as a K-pop group like any other, and that's all. Nothing is different about them just because they have members from North Korea. Also, these people talking about them only talked about them because the company has a budget and promoted them quite a bit through pre-debut content and such. And so people noticed their group having the North Korean members. And so they got talked about more, but I also found out that One Verse are the first K-pop group to reveal members from North Korea, but not the first K-pop group to debut North Koreans, as Hyuksang from B-Boys debuted where B-Boys also debuted in 2025 but before One Verse even debuted, but nobody seems to be mentioning B-Boys, and it's probably because the company doesn't really have the budget, which is noticeable, and so because of that people are not noticing Hyuksang. I mean in the end we shouldn't care about where members come from, but it really shows how big of a role budget plays because if One Verse didn't have a budget at all, then they wouldn't be noticed by people and talked about like they are now, and it's true. Having North Korean members can get people talking because it's North Korea, but if people don't know you exist, then people won't care. All these articles about One Verse are not made because they care about the group having such members, it's only because the group's company were able to put them out there to get noticed in the first place, since you can see again nobody talking about Hyuksang. I just think that in the end I don't think it's bad for them to be seen as having NK members, but I don't want them to be known for that alone, because what's good in debuting if your whole group is just X group with X members from X country? One Verse is more than just their North Korean members.